It's Trisha Russell with Fear to Freedom, and we are so excited today to have you join us for our Facebook Live. And I am super excited because my dear friend, mentor, someone I look up to, Christen Shefchunas, is also joining us. For those of you who have participated in our Champions Luncheon or any of our Champions Circle events, you have listened to and heard Kristen before, so you know how awesome and wonderful she is. But let me just tell you a little bit about her. She sometimes goes by Coach Kristen or Coach Christy. But after watching too many really talented, hardworking women miss out on their dreams because of doubts, fear, lack of confidence, Kristen left her 16-year coaching career to start her own business, speaking and working one on one with women and giving them confidence coaching. So her company was created out of her passion to help all women face their fears, their doubts, and really build that confidence that will help them accomplish anything they want in life, and to create a life that is where confidence can thrive. So I am thrilled to introduce you all to Coach Kristen, my friend, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about herself first.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Yes, I come from the athletic world. I swam back in the 90s at the University of Tennessee, go Vols, and then pretty much started my coaching career right away. 2 years at the club level before I started my college coaching career. I did 2 years at Michigan State as an assistant, 4 years at SMU in Dallas as an assistant, became the head coach at the University of Miami in '06. First few years I was there, I failed miserably. Finally, figured it out and started having success. But through those rough years of failing, you know, even though it's the worst to going through that failure and to go through it for so long, it also, if you allow it, teaches a lot about yourself. And what I realized about me was that, yes, I love the sport of swimming, but that wasn't my passion. My passion was the women and their confidence, because I just watched way too many women, miss out on their goals. And it wasn't because of their work ethic. It wasn't because they didn't have the talent. It was because of, their lack of confidence. So ended up leaving college coaching in 13. Wanted to start this business. I work one-on-one with women athletes. That's slowly turning into all women and women in business. But anyway, that year after I left Miami, it wasn't going very well. Things, weren't happening as fast as I wanted them to. And, right when I was about to have my mental breakdown of what have I done, got a call from David Marsh, who ended up being the head Olympic coach in Rio for the women swimmers. He was working with a group called Team Elite, which was a group of 17 national team and Olympic swimmers. He brought me in to speak, obviously liked what I had to say, created a position for me. So I worked with that group for a year, getting them ready for Olympic trials and the games in Rio. And then I came back to doing this, working one-on-one with women. And then also I go around and speak about confidence.
Well, we were lucky enough to have you at two of our events over the last few years. And then, of course, with COVID, there's not a whole lot of in person going on, but I've loved attending some of your virtual things that you've done. And for those of you watching us for the first time, definitely check out her website. It will be in our Facebook link later, and you can find out what other events and things she's doing. So, Kristen, tell us what a confidence coach does. I love that name. I love that title. But tell us what that really means.
Well, I've been thinking about it lately because I've been a confidence coach my whole, career. It just, it was actually those few years at Miami where I was failing so miserably. I remember, I wanted to quit at that point because I was not good at my job. And anyway, instead of quitting, I started to work on me. I surrounded myself, with some wise mentors and actually a sports psychologist at the time. And what I realized was I wasn't using any of my gifts being a head coach. For example, they asked me, because I had a lot of success as an assistant coach, and I loved being an assistant coach. And so they asked me, what made you a great assistant coach? Well, that was easy because I took care of the women, and I took care of their confidence. And, I helped them with life outside of sport, because life outside of sport always affects sport. So anyway, I went into Miami as a head coach and just focused on swimming, right? And I wasn't doing the confidence coaching piece of it. And so they really challenged me to start being me and start using my gifts. And so hired an assistant who loved the swimming. And I got to use my gifts. And so I started offering the women on my team an hour a week where they could come in and just vomit their truth, come in and talk about anything and everything. Probably 15 to 20% of it was actually about swimming. The rest was about,
Everything
life
else.
outside of there. Sometimes it was a 15-minute check-in. Sometimes it was the whole hour of, crying and Kleenex and, all that good stuff. But that's when it really, made me realize this is what I love to do. But not only that, it also made my team so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 100 times the success that we did in my last couple of years there than we did in my first few. So, that's when being a confidence coach, really became a thing for me. And what it is just giving women a safe space to come in and vomit their truth and be able to, speak about anything and everything, especially those things that we shove down into the darkness because it's too embarrassing. I don't want to talk about it. It hurts too bad. Let me just shove it down.
But even the little things we shove down because we feel like either somebody's not going to understand, or I'm the only one that feels that way, or gosh, I don't want everybody to think I don't have it all together. I mean, that's,
and fear, like we don't want to be looked at as a weakling, and that we're struggling. So it's really a safe space to come in and talk about that, because, that stuff that we do shove down, we hope it goes away, but it doesn't go away. And I always explain it as it becomes like an anchor in us. And we go to take a step forward, into our potential, into our dreams, into what we want our life to look like, but we're stuck. But, it's when we finally have the courage to face it and start speaking our truth is when we can get rid of that anchor and really start taking steps forward.
So let me ask this question, because you just mentioned speaking our truth. Tell me what you mean by, living in your truth, speaking your truth. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, like my time at Miami, living my truth was, using my gifts, not trying to be what I thought a head coach should be, but actually being me. But then there's also, different points in there as well, because again, fear, doubts, things like that, being able to speak about it. My definition of confidence is having nothing left to hide. And when we're hiding who we are, when we're hiding, that junk we're trying to shove down, I mean, there's no way that confidence can flow. So it's just being, 100% you. And hey, this is who I am, take it or leave it, but right. I'm cool, I'm cool regardless. But another piece of that is, as women, we're also very uncomfortable in our truth. We are, you don't hear very many women saying, I'm really good at this.
Right.
Or, anything like that, because, I always say there are two things that we've learned. First of all, saying I'm good at something, speaking our truth, is somehow seen as cocky or arrogant. Right. Yep. Men can do it all the time. Like we applaud men that talk about, them being good at something. But if a woman does, it's like, wow, who does she think she is? And then the second thing that we've learned is an arrogant woman is offensive. Like an arrogant woman is unladylike. And I mean, it is, society cringes at arrogant women. So we have really confused this idea of being cocky or arrogant. Like we don't even feel like we can speak our truth fully because we're worried of, people might think that we're arrogant. So that's another thing that I really dive into as well is, really making sure that we are speaking our truth. And if we are good at something, guess what? We're allowed to say it. I was just telling a group the other day, one of the biggest complaints for employers as they interview women is that they won't sell themselves enough.
Oh,
Because,
that's a good
I
point.
don't want
Yeah.
you to think I'm too full of myself or I'm too cocky. And it's like, share your resume, say everything you've accomplished.
Yeah.
But, I don't want to tell them everything because they might think, I'm arrogant. And it's a vicious cycle.
So as women, how can we support each other in changing that? How do we step out of our comfort zone? Because a lot of it is a comfort zone. I mean, I'm older than you are, but how I was raised is probably not that different in that, you know, boys were really good at sports and boys were good at this and girls were this and girls were that. Now, I happen to be a huge tomboy and very athletic, and had a father and a mom who supported me all through that, but it was still a little different. I tease my dad all the time. He had two completely sets of rules for us, one for the boys and one for Trisha, because I was the only girl and I was the oldest. But so I kind of, not having any sisters, I kind of always had very close girlfriend friendships, that we would support each other. But to your point of, we kind of look at people like, why is she so arrogant, or why is she, and it's really not that she's arrogant, it's just she's strong, she's forthcoming, she believes in herself. But so how do we support each other and avoid that trap?
Sure. Well, someone recently asked me, like, can we start speaking our truth without ruffling feathers? No,
No.
because society is not used to women, being confident. Excuse me. They don't like confident women, so to be confident, to speak your truth, it is going to ruffle some feathers. But, I think what we all need to remember as women is a lot of the times, not always, but a lot of the times, when you speak your truth, the person rolling their eyes and saying, who does she think she is another woman.
Right.
So I think that if we can really check ourselves, like, oh, there's something about her I don't like. What is it about her? What is it about her that you don't like? Because the majority of the time, you're probably going to realize that we've been taught that a confident woman is offensive. And that's why, because, her strength and her power and her confidence, can be offensive. It's been taught to us that it's offensive. And so a lot of times that's why we are offended. So it's really important that we as women check ourselves when we're feeling that way toward a woman and saying, hey, she's allowed to speak her truth.
Yeah.
So I'm not only going to allow her, but I'm going to encourage her to keep doing it.
Do you think sometimes too it's also that our own self-doubt or our own feelings of, wow, look what she's done, I could never do that, or the doubting of myself is also what creates some of that? A little jealousy, a little envy maybe, and maybe instead of looking at it that way, we need to look at it as, wow, if somebody else can do that, why couldn't I do that? Or if somebody else can talk that way, why can't I talk that way?
Well, so that takes me into comparing, which is one of the biggest killers of our confidence as women.
Yeah.
But the problem is we've been taught to, it's ingrained in us to compare ourselves to other women, right? So, I always say, I'm never going to say stop comparing, because, if I tell you that, you're going to keep doing it and then beat yourself up. Why do I keep comparing? I'm going to tell you, hey, when you find yourself comparing, which, the trigger usually is you feel like garbage about yourself. When you find yourself comparing, pull yourself back into hey, this isn't a one woman at a time thing. Like, I always use the example of, you take a shower, you do your makeup, you put on a cute outfit back when we used to be able to go out, right? You're going to a social event or whatever, and you feel really pretty leaving the house. And then you get to the restaurant or wherever you're going, and there's a drop dead gorgeous woman there. We start comparing ourselves, and now we feel less pretty, right? It's as if she took our pretty away, right? Which is 100% not true, but that's how it makes us feel. But the problem is because we then go, she's making me feel bad about myself, instead of saying, no, I'm making me feel bad about myself because I'm the one comparing and, buying into the lie that somehow, I'm not pretty because she is. Like, one person can only be pretty at a time. But anyway,
That's good.
We have animosity against her. and we get mad at her. And so that's why I think a lot of women don't like, a confident woman, because then they compare themselves, and it's like any confidence they have, that woman's taking it away. We feel like a woman's taking something away from us when we're comparing. And that's why a lot of women butt heads. And it's like, if we would just be aware, it's nonsense to think
It is. Yes.
oh, well, she's pretty, I can't be pretty. No, we can all be pretty, or we can
Right.
all be successful. It doesn't have to be one woman at a time, kind of thing. So if we can, because again, naturally we're going to do it, but pulling ourselves back to, wait a second, this makes no sense. Let me find some perspective and, realize, hey, good for you. You're pretty and you're successful, being able to encourage and say,
Yes.
great job, and then just because, she has it doesn't mean I can't have it too.
Right. Yeah. There's not like it's a limited supply of confidence and, you know,
Right. Right.
feelings of being strength and strong and powerful.
Yeah.
There's
But
plenty for all of us.
I think that often leads into the, ooh, who does she
Mm-hmm.
think she is? Because, a confident woman makes us feel, ugh, uncomfortable, and as if we're not maybe as good or as confident, or, I wish I could be like that, instead of, hey, I can be, and she can too.
So what do you tell yourself that? Because I'm sure you're like the rest of us where we all have those moments, some more than others. But what do you tell yourself when you find yourself thinking that or feeling that besides, stop it, stop it? Are there
Yeah.
things you tell yourself?
Well, one of the things I remember, because when I lived in Miami, every time you went out, it was like, an episode of America's Next Top Model.
So true. So
I mean,
true.
there are beautiful women everywhere. I mean, I got into a habit of making sure to like go up and say to the woman, like, wow, like you are really pretty, or just give her a compliment. And she would always be so shocked that a woman would come up and give her
I
a
love that.
compliment. Most women would just give hate, toward her.
Right.
So that's certainly a way to kind of, pull yourself back into some perspective. But, again, I think just remembering it's not one woman at a time here,
Right.
and especially when it comes to success, right? And I think it's reminding yourself, like, this path to success, it's going to look different for everybody. And
Sure.
though this person maybe got to success before I did, doesn't mean, well, she gets it all and I can't have any. My path is just going to look, a little bit different.
Well, and I think we can help each other along those paths. And
Oh,
I think,
absolutely.
like, I love what you just said about seeing someone that looks really nice or very pretty or whatever, and complimenting them on that. Can you imagine what a better place the world would be if we all said every day we were going to find, even if we just found one person and told them how beautiful they looked or how confident they were or something that struck you?
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
gosh.
as easy as, I really like your sweater.
Yeah.
I mean, it will change somebody's day.
Well, and it'll change yours too, because when you
Oh,
make them feel good, you feel good.
no doubt.
So, okay, putting that on my list. Definitely going to make sure to be doing that going forward. And I try to do, the kind thing every day, somewhere in my day, do something that's kind and unexpected. But I like that a lot as well.
Good.
So let me ask you this. What would you tell your 16-year-old self, knowing what you know now? What would you go back and tell yourself? Or would
Okay.
you?
So there's kind of two answers to that question. And let me say, my first answer may not be to my 16-year-old self, but to my early 20s
Okay,
self,
that's fair.
which is you are worthy of so much more.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's very
Um,
good.
to my 16-year-old self, I was a swimmer, I was an athlete. When it came to fear, not allowed to be. So I would just pretend I wasn't while the
Yep.
fear ate me alive inside. I'll never forget my senior year in high school when I started to get really good in swimming, and like going to the state meet, ranked way higher than I'd ever been. I think I was third in the state or something. And I remember being really scared and very fragile. And, my coach coming up to me and and saying, I brought my camera, so when you're up on the podium getting your medal, I can get lots of pictures. And I'm like,
Freak out moment.
I went to the bathroom and bawled my eyes out, cleaned myself up, came back and kept pretending, I was okay, and had a terrible competition. And that is why I'm so passionate about what I do, because it's so important that we know we're allowed to speak that stuff out. And when we don't, again, it becomes like an anchor in us. So what I would say to that 16-year-old is, you're allowed to be afraid. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you. I don't know any woman that isn't, afraid sometimes, certainly not in pressure situations. I don't believe in fearless in pressure situations, so you're not alone. And you're allowed to talk it out.
Yes.
and get it, and get it out of you, so you can get rid of this anchor and actually, perform at your potential.
Yeah, that's huge. I think it's interesting. We do teach our kids, and there's a philosophy of get over it, pull yourself up, move on. You know, you can you can do anything. And yes, we want them to believe they can do anything. But I think to your point, they need to understand that yes, they can do anything, but there are going to be times they're going to be afraid. There are going to be times they have doubt, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not, don't ignore it and don't shove it down, because it won't, like you said, it won't stay there. It'll just keep coming
Whenever I
back.
speak to young 16-year-old, young women, and I share my talk, and I share a lot of times like what the fears of a lot of the Olympians that I work with, these women that you see on TV
Yeah.
and think, gosh, I wish I could be fearless like them.
Yes.
And I share what they're thinking as they're walking into a competition, which of course is terror,
Yep.
and a lot of fear. And I mean, without fail, I'll see, a young girl wiping a tear away, because they're just so relieved
Yeah.
to know, oh, there's nothing wrong with me, like, oh my gosh, what a relief to know that it's actually okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge gift for young women, but I also think it's a gift for us as
Oh,
well to understand that we all have these fears and these doubts, and we all have these moments of, I can't do this. Why am I doing this? I remember when I first started as the executive director, I thought, what, who do I think I am? I don't know anything about this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, and I just remember, thankfully I have an amazing husband. And I remember him saying, you can do this. You want to do this, and you have the passion. So you'll learn what you don't know. But they can't teach you passion. They can't teach you understanding and empathy, but you can learn the rest. And I just remember being like, okay, yeah, I can. I can learn. I'm not that old that I can't learn. And I remember you telling me one time a story you were telling me, and it was about one of your swimmers, and she was super confident and ready to go and got up on the block, and her demeanor as she walked to the block and got up completely changed. She swam a race that was not up to what she was capable of. She got out of the pool, and you were like, what went through your head from this point to that point? And that was what happened, was she started doubting herself and thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as they think I am. Or what if I'm not? Not even that she wasn't, but just that what if.
yeah.
And I always remember that. So whenever I have a day where I don't feel like I've accomplished what I should, or I don't feel like it went the way it should have, or I didn't handle a situation, I always think of you and I step back and I'm like, what was going through my head? What happened, and at what point did I start the doubt, and why did I start it? And it's amazing how that really will kind of clear your head out and really help you to understand what specifically it is that makes you doubt yourself or have a fear about something.
Yeah.
um,
Your husband that day just spoke some perspective into you, right?
he
Some
did.
perspective and truth. And that is what I try to teach. And believe me, there are days where, the pressure is bigger than ever and you need somebody to
Yeah.
speak it into you. But what I try to teach is to do that yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but most importantly, it's being aware, hey, I'm freaking out. What's going through my mind right now, and actually process it. And then being able to say, okay, I'm out here in this really scary place. Let me get myself back into some perspective, and truth on my own without needing anybody else. That doesn't mean they don't need somebody else sometimes.
Right.
for the most part, being able to really pull yourself back, and speak perspective, because a lot of the times the fears that we're having don't even make that much sense.
No. And there are things that we've kind of created in our mind that aren't even really, they're real, but they're not based in anything factual or, whatever. So yeah, you're right. It is
Yeah.
something. Do
Yeah.
you have do you have like a mantra or a motto or anything like that that you say to yourself on those days where you are having an incredibly low day, or a day where you're like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm not any good. I can't do this.
I'm a very, and this because you've heard my talk, but I'm a very big believer that what we focus in on, a positive affirmation, a motto, something like that, we as women, we have to truly believe it,
Right.
and believe it down deep. So many athletes have told me, from a young age, they've been taught to stand before competitions with all these positive affirmations. I got this. I will be great today. I will do this. I will do that. But down deep, they didn't actually
Right.
believe it. So mine changes every day because, it has to fit in line with what I believe that day. But something, especially through this pandemic, that I've been focusing in on is that my best is going to look different on different days. And some days my best is absolutely amazing. And some days my best is sitting on the couch watching Netflix.
Give yourself permission.
And that's all I got for the day. So, I think that that's a big one for us to, remember that our best is just going to look different on different days, and that's okay. But as long as, you're giving your best, it's enough.
So, mentioning the pandemic, a lot of women are struggling during this time, especially working women, because they're having to be mom, now they're having to be teacher, their wife, they're working. They may even be helping take care of aging parents or worried about them. And so, a lot of up and down, a lot of, I'm sure, doubt, fear. What can we do to support each other during an unusually intense and stressful time?
Your best is going to look different on different days. That, I mean, honestly, like that is
Yeah,
is so key. We're not always going to remember it. So reminding your friends,
good point.
of it. I mean, I remember, one of my best friends, who's dealing with breast cancer and stuff like that, and she's sitting at home and feeling like she's doing nothing. And I'm like, what'd you do today? Well, I did like 5 loads of laundry.
Yeah,
I made dinner for the kids. And I'm like, how is that nothing? Like, are you kidding me? So it's often, if you're going to encourage your friends, just reminding them, of what they're doing. And then also reminding them that, it's okay to take a day to sit on the couch and watch Netflix. I mean, that is how we get through hard times.
yeah,
And because we're not going to let ourselves off the hook very easily. So having someone in your life to remind you, hey, let yourself off the hook for this one, is pretty helpful. But, all in all, it's having someone to talk to. It's having someone, that you can trust that soul deep stuff to.
yeah.
And if you don't have somebody, I'm very big into counseling as well. I just started again a couple of months ago because I need to, like, to work through things. I am absolutely not ashamed of it. Like, having, someone to just get all that, dark, deep stuff that
Yeah.
we don't want to talk about, getting it out. And then journaling too. I mean, journaling is absolutely huge. To I always call it my truth paper.
Oh, I like
No
that.
sugarcoating, no watering down, like 100% truth, on these pages to get it out of our souls.
I like that. That's good. And I liked what you said earlier about, giving the girls you were coaching that 1 hour each week. I mean, that's such a gift and you don't realize that. So, we need to be that for each other during this time. And, even if they don't want to talk, just letting them know that you're there if they want to. And letting them know that it's okay if they need a day to recharge. I mean, sitting on the couch watching Netflix, there's nothing wrong with that. That is a recharge,
Absolutely.
re energize yourself, because you can't go 90 miles an hour every day, all day, 24/7. You will burn out. And so I think as women, we need to encourage each other to take those, those minutes or a day if that's what's necessary to, recoup and regenerate and then be there to help them get back,
Yeah.
into it and let them know that, we're there for them and whatever it is. It could be, cup of coffee, glass of wine, taking dinner over, or just an ear and, do that and support each other.
It's so odd how we bought into this lie that rest is a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's like
So true.
it's part of it, and it's certainly part of success. You can't get there without it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, how do you practice self care? I mean, we talked about couch and Netflix, but are there other things that you do that you practice, when you're kind of having the beginning, because a lot of times you can kind of feel it coming on and
Sure.
you need, and you can, give yourself a break or whatever. What are some things and some tips that you do?
Well, journaling is big for me because I don't want anything in me that is negative or scary or whatever. So journaling is huge for me. The minute I feel that okay, something's gonna happen here, I grab my journal. Tuesday night, my two closest friends here, we get wine and we bare our souls to each other, talking it all out. So that is something I depend on every week.
That's great.
But then every morning I either take a walk or I run. I'm thankful that it helps me physically, but it's way more for the mental than it is for the physical. I am just a better person when I get up and get moving and exercise, in the morning. I don't even, yeah, it's exercise. I'll say that. But, I've just been walking lately and it's just my time to really, it's my most creative time. It's my time to think. It's my time to talk to God. It's just me, my time that does wonders for me.
That's great. I think it is definitely trying to find one or two things that really work for you.
Yeah.
Walking is definitely one of the ones for me. So, as someone who would love to journal but feels overwhelmed by the thought of it, what kind of what advice do you have for getting started? Because I will say we encourage survivors of sexual trauma to journal, to just start writing things down that they're not ready to say out loud. But how can we? What's your advice for that for someone who's never done it before, but sees the value in it and just doesn't know where to start and what to do?
So I definitely, like I said, I see my journal as truth paper, and there is no, like I said, watering down or sugarcoating any truth. But then also, and this may not be for everybody, but for me, my journal is me talking to God, and I feel
Okay.
like God already knows. So I might as well be honest, and truthful in it. So, it's start small. I mean, start simple.
Okay.
Start with, how your day went, or, it's not even how you felt. It's more about that inner, and how you're feeling and stuff like that. So even starting your journal with, I'm scared to death to start a journal. Like, I am scared
Okay.
because I'm going to have to face things that I have been shoving down into the darkness for a long time and haven't wanted to face. But, I think Brene Brown's quote, like owning your story is one of the bravest things,
Oh, absolutely.
you could ever,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, even if
right,
it's not a big trauma or a big event that you're struggling with, I think it's important. Um,
absolutely. Absolutely.
so,
So I think it's, like I said, start simple and, just be honest. I'm scared to death, and here's why. I mean, even starting there can be helpful.
I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's a really good place to start. Um, so I'm gonna start wrapping us up a little bit. I do want to ask one more question, but you and I have known each other for a couple years, and I've heard several of your talks and things like that, and you've often talked about like the dangers of perfection and striving for perfection, and as women, we do tend to do that. We do it to ourselves. We put those same standards, which aren't really standards, on other people that we care and love. How do we get away from that? How do we look at perfection for what it is, non-existent? There is no such thing as perfection. But how do we get through that? How do we push that away?
Yeah, I think it's a journey. It's not something, I think it's something because I don't know a woman that doesn't have at least a little bit of perfectionism in her,
Yeah,
right? And it's just different levels,
exactly.
for everybody. So, I think the thing to remember, well, actually a trigger word for you is enough.
Enough.
Because when we feel we need to be perfect, it's never enough. And certainly, working with athletes as much as I do, if the practice isn't perfect, it wasn't enough. If, weights wasn't perfect, then it wasn't enough. And then you're walking into pressure situations, you're walking into competitions feeling like you haven't done enough and you aren't enough, so that's where it gets really
Yeah.
dangerous. So I think it's just, um, again, the trigger word being enough. And when you find yourself saying, this isn't enough, this isn't enough, this isn't enough, like I said before, your best is going to look different on different days. But as long as you're giving your best, it's always enough. That's the truth. Whether you agree with it or not,
Right.
that is 100% truth. So just reminding yourself, like, hey, I'm thinking this isn't enough. Did I give my best? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
then
enough on one day may be different on enough on another day. I
no
mean,
doubt about it.
we have to remember there are days where we're just not in sync for whatever reason, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That is enough. I think that's important to remember.
Yeah.
And I know you and I have talked about perfection before, but it's I think it's something we all as women struggle with. But not only do we struggle with it for ourselves, but I think we struggle with it for our families, for our children, for our friends even. And I think it's important, as you point out, to remember it's a journey, as is confidence. You're not going to
Oh,
suddenly miraculously have confidence all at once and it's never going to go away. It's a journey, it's a process, and you have to keep building on it. And we have to, as women especially, keep building each other up and keep that confidence up.
yes.
um, I think that's super important. One thing I did want to mention, and we didn't really talk about it, but Kristen designed these amazing confidence nugget bracelets. I'm gonna let her tell you a little bit more about it, but her website and our Fear to Freedom website, we have these on there. This is actually our Fear to Freedom Be the Change bracelet, which obviously I'm very partial to. I have two of them. But tell us a little bit about why you created those, because I love them. I think that it's the coolest thing. I think I must have 10 of your bracelets, different colors. But I just think that is such a great symbol to us, that it is a process, and that we do have and other with our confidence. Here, I'm taking your thunder. You tell it.
Oh, no, no. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a way to simplify this, but when I was at Miami, I just realized that um, we as women, we never give ourselves credit. We have big goals. We're willing to take steps and work hard for those goals, but then we never give ourselves credit. And we are also really bad at, if we do 99 things right and one thing wrong, we're always thinking about that one thing wrong.
Yes.
And it started to dawn on me, like, okay, if we're never giving ourselves credit, and especially because it's not good enough, it's not fast enough, it's not, if it's not perfect, it's not enough. We're never giving ourselves credit, and we're only focused in on what we're doing wrong. Like, how are
Yeah.
we ever going to feel prepared? How are we ever going to feel confident? So when I was at Miami, I went out and I bought a bunch of gold beads and put them in a bucket in the women's locker room, and I called them confidence nuggets. Gold beads and gold nuggets plus confidence. And so anytime the women took a step toward their goal, I wanted them to take this gold bead, this confidence nugget, and it could just be their reminder of all the hard work that they were
Right.
putting in, and the reminder that they are prepared as they walk into competitions. So anyway, I was working with a young woman in 2015, 2016, who before competitions, she used to write down 10 reasons why she was going to swim fast before every competition, because fear used to absolutely paralyze her. And as we worked on it, she ended up making the Olympic team in 16. So anyway, I took these confidence nuggets and put 10 of them on a bracelet for her. They were to represent the 10 reasons why she's going to swim fast, because when we're under pressure, the first thing to come is fear and doubts. The first thing to go seems to be our confidence, our perspective, and our truth. And so having that bracelet, a reminder of her truth. So when the fear would come, because she's at the Olympics, of course there's going to be fear, she could look down at her bracelet and be reminded, of those 10 reasons of her truth. To make a long story short, the girl didn't take the bracelet off the entire Olympic Games. The only time she did take it off is when she went to swim, and she still left it at the top of her swim bag just to catch a glimpse, because when we're under pressure, that truth, that reminder of truth can make such a big difference. So
absolutely,
she ended up winning a gold and a bronze, at the Olympics, came back, told me how much the bracelet had helped. So I started making more, where I put one confidence nugget, and then each color or pattern represents a truth that we as women so often forget. Like, I am courageous, I am determined, I do belong, I am deserving, I am worthy, I am enough. There's 25, I believe, now, different bracelets, but they are just there on your wrist when you forget your truth, when you're panicking, when you are feeling fear. You can look at your bracelet and be reminded of your truth.
Absolutely. And I love that they're all different colors. They all have a different meaning. And so, you can have multiples on that speak to you in different ways. And I think that's really cool. So we will have that link on our page and in the post after we're done with this. So last thing I always like to ask everybody, if there's one thing you want everybody that was listening today to take away, walk away with, what would that be?
Well, I'm going to do two, because I think
You can.
Speak. It's okay. Get that anchor out, speak your truth. Find someone that you can speak truth to. And then I'm going to say it again. Your best is going to look different on different days. But as long as you're giving your best is always enough.
I think that's perfect. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, everybody else that's watching. Again, we'll have links to Christen's website on our website. You can find her link, and also in our social media, you'll be able to find it. I hope you all got as much out of this today. Every time I have a conversation with Christen, I have some new little thing that I'm like, okay, I got this. This is gonna help. This is gonna make something different. But please remember, it's a journey. It's a process. It's something that we need to help each other along with, because it's very hard to do things by yourself. And as women, we need to support each other, regardless of if it's something small or if it's really that big life thing that we have to support each other. So, Christen, my friend, thank you for being with us today. I'm so grateful. You all have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for joining us.